Yes, people, it is Ted Lawlor, aka Mr. IOTK from If Only They Knew, the hub for young business minds. Now, seeing as the If Only They Knew podcast did so well in its first series with over 50 guests and hitting the iTunes top 10 charts in countries across the globe, I thought, why not summarize each and every episode? Yes, that's right. I am going to summarize 50 episodes. Each and every one, I'll be sharing a few key lessons that I learned from some of the UK's best young business minds. Now, if you find any of the lessons that we share today valuable, please do subscribe to the If Only They Knew podcast for the full length episodes. The podcast is available on all major podcast platforms, so just simply search If Only They Knew and subscribe today. So with that being said, here are some of the lessons I learned from the 10 business minds that appeared on the If Only They Knew podcast. Now, in a world full of hustle porn and people pretending to be something that they're not, it was so refreshing to hear from this particular young business mind about the importance of being open, honest, and transparent. Now, this advice comes from Jack Parsons, the award-winning entrepreneur and founder of the Youth Group, a group providing opportunities for young people across the UK. Staying true to his authentic nature, Jack opened up about his thoughts on failing. Now, as kids, we're always taught that if you don't listen to the teacher's way of learning and understanding, then you're going to get an F. An F stands for failure. Once we get that F in school, we then go our whole life trying to avoid that failure. Whereas Jack, being the open and honest person that he is, said failure is okay.
The British culture, it's changing, Ted. It used to tell us, and it's changing slightly. It's still not there, but failure is bad.
Yes.
Getting something wrong, fucking up, whatever that is, it's bad. It's not bad. You either learn or you win.
Now, this gave me the extra confidence to go out there, and it doesn't matter whether I fail or not, because you never fail. You either learn or you win. Another thing that Jack openly revealed was the mental health challenges, learning difficulties, and bullying that he experienced when he was younger.
And so you start growing up trying to say, how can I better serve my parents and how can I better look after them, especially my mum being an alcoholic. So I was always around the smell of alcohol and I just tried to get away from that. And in school, I was bullied until year 9 because young people are smart, young entrepreneurs are smart, and they know the odd one out. And the only reason the bullying stopped is because I was old enough to take out a paper round, which funded my judo lessons.
Perhaps due to the fact he was an outsider when he was younger, Jack has no issues with not being invited to the party. Now, whether this is an actual party, a business group, or whatever it may be, Jack has no issue with not being included, as if you don't get an invite to the party, he said you should just create your own.
And we've got a community of 1.8 million young people across the country.
That's amazing.
So how do you go in, when you break it down, growth hacking, what growth hacking do you put in place? Who has the network? It's the famous saying, you go to where the party is.
Yes, that's a good
But also, Ted, if you're not invited to the party, create your own.
Overall, Jack taught me that if you want to be truly successful, you need to find some happiness. Now, another person that taught me about the power of happiness is professional boxer and musician Hannah Rankin. Now, Hannah came from a small village in Scotland, but she knuckled down and is now a face known nationwide thanks to her talents in both boxing and music. Now, this taught me it doesn't matter where you come from, it's all about where you're going.
So basically, I grew up at the top of a glen right beside Luss, so even more sort of remote on a farm with my 2 younger sisters. And we went to the local primary school in Luss. There was like 27 kids in the whole school, primary 1 to primary 7. So wow. It was like full-blown like village life. Very, very small.
Now, one of the things we gathered in the conversation with Hannah is that she believes in karma. The more positivity you put out there, she believes that you'll get that positivity back. So be positive.
Also, I do believe if you're putting out positivity, always try and like to better yourself and help other people with things, good things will come back to you. Like 100% believe in that. Like I'm not one of those people who thinks it's all kind of airy fairy nonsense. I do think it's important because it does actually tell people a lot about you and yourself. So try and be positive, try and look on the positive side of things, always try and find a positive light, or like even just not even positive, but like a different way of looking at it. Because it actually make you feel a lot better as a person, for sure. That always makes me feel better, and a lot of it comes back to me as well. So that's my general view on that.
Even though most of Hannah's success seems to come from her positive mindset, a lot of it also comes from the fact that she takes every opportunity she can. Even if she doesn't understand or know how to do something, she takes the mindset that she'll learn on the job and do it anyway. This is a great thing for young people to take on.
No, I think that's a good question, actually, because I think people want an answer to that. They want an easy answer. So for me, at a very young age, my parents encouraged us to do whatever we wanted to do, like with extracurricular. So like it's really important to have other strings to your bow, shall we say. Like, so it's good to go out and do these other things and challenge yourself, because you never know, actually you might have a bit of a talent for it, or you might have a natural aptitude, or you might just really enjoy it. You don't have to be great at something to like do it. You can, just because you enjoy it, it's great to take part. So I encourage people to step outside the comfort zone, do something a little bit different, or something they've always been curious about, because you never know where it's going to lead you. And I think for me, that's how I've basically got to where I am now, because every time somebody suggested something crazy to me or gave me an opportunity, I took it. And I thought, why not? Let's do it. Exactly. And it didn't pay me in the beginning for a lot of things, but it's all come back eventually.
Somebody else who spoke about learning on the job was actually another boxer, heavyweight prospect, Fabio Wardley. Fabio was never really interested in boxing until we took the opportunity to try some white collar boxing. And much like he said in our conversation, as well as Hannah did, he learned on the job and is now one of the best boxers in the UK.
I looked at it for what it was and I said, look, do you want to do this? Yes. Is the opportunity here now? Yes. Go for it then. Let's go. We'll just do it. We'll learn on the job. We'll figure it out. But you don't know how to drive until you start taking driving lessons. Like,
yeah, that's true.
It's just one of those things. You just need to kind of get in the car and get going and figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And that was how me and my team viewed it.
Myself and Fabio also had a conversation about whether you should double down on one particular thing of yours or try everything. And the main answer from Fabio was double down and make the most out of your skills.
It's a mix between both, isn't it? You're trying not to be a one-trick pony, but then at the same time, you don't want to be a jack of all trades where you're just in everything. Like, it's a hard one to kind of manage, but I would always pick doubling down on whatever's works for you first. Like, in whatever it was, like, even if you relate it to boxing, to business, whatever, that one skill you have, that one thing you can do well, if you have a great jab in boxing, then you use that. That's your go-to. That's what you do to set up your shots. That's what you do to get you out of trouble. That's what you do to set the next one up, or whatever it is. You start with that. And then once you've got that concrete and solid and you know that inside out, then you move on to the next one. Okay, so what am I not so good at? Okay, so let's work on this. And where does that not fit with me? And where can I improve? I think you start by doubling down on things. I think you really kind of hone your core skills of whatever they are, and you make sure they're kind of crisp and sharp. And then once you've got those, then you start kind of looking at the outside stuff.
Much like he did with the white collar boxing, Fabio also taught me to take the opportunity whilst it's there, because you never know how long it's going to be sitting there waiting to be taken.
So in the short of it, it was just taking advantage of the opportunity while the opportunity was in front of me. That was how I saw it. So I first ever put on a pair of gloves at 20 years old, and then I did white collar for a few years, and I only had 4 white collar fights in total. That was all I had. And then the opportunity came to me, to someone to turn pro. They said, look, you look half decent, you could do something. Do you want to turn pro? And at that point, I had a decision to make of, do I feel I'm ready? No, I don't feel I'm there. But is this opportunity going to come again? Do I know that for a certain? If I say no now, is it going to be there in 2 years when maybe I am better than where I am right now, but is that opportunity actually going to be there? So I didn't know that, and I didn't know that for a certain. The only certain I knew was the opportunity is here now. So I knew that if I took advantage of that, at least that way it's there, and I can put all the training in. I can do all the work that I need to do. I can catch up.
Yeah.
Do what I've got to do to get there. And that was how I viewed it.
Now, both Hannah and Fabio found their passions later on in life, later than most people anyway. But one person that found their passion very early on and pursued it was Mr. Joe Long. Joe had a passion for karate and combat sports ever since he was in school. He chased down that passion and he's now director of the UFC Gym UK franchise. One of the main things I learned from Joe that I wasn't really expecting, to be honest, was the fact that it is okay to be a pest. Now, what he means by this is it's okay to be shouting, getting your name heard, asking people for things, chasing them up for things as well. It's okay because especially in the early days, you're going to need to be doing everything you can to get heard and get what you're after.
Yeah, no, you got to be a pest. You got to be a pest.
It's hard.
You got to be a pest. And what you say there is 100% true with you know what I've done over the years. With you know whether it's with events or with venues or with you know asking. You got to talk to people and you got to ask.
Yeah.
You know you've got to talk to people and you've got to ask. And if I hadn't bothered certain people, you know, back in the day, definitely I wouldn't you know be in the sort of position I'm in now. It's like still working for myself so many years later and fairly happy in life, you know. Got to be a pest.
Now, even though Joe stresses the importance of being heard, one of the things that he actually taught me as well was the fact that you need to get rid of your ego in the business world. Now, so many people put themselves as the face of the business when there's just no need to. Like he said in the clip, unless your name's Bob and you own a building company, or your name's Ted and you own Ted's whatever company, then perhaps you need to be the face of your brand, especially if you're built on a personal brand. If not, sit back and let the business do the talking. That's probably one of the reasons why he's in charge of one of the biggest franchises in the world with the UFC.
But yeah, there's been a number of events, a number of people, a number of projects, you know, both in sport and outside of sport, which I've sat behind, which I haven't felt the need to say, yeah, you know, this is me. This is what I've done. You know, there's tons of stuff, you know, which I'm easy with that. I'm not that egomaniac guy. I don't need to have, you know, Joe Long written on, you know, he's, you know, presented by Joe Long. You know, that's not me. I think a brand, you know, whatever brand you're working with, that should come first. You know, that should be if you're working within events or within promotions or, you know, whatever you're doing, really, and unless it's you know Ted the Builders, and you're promoting Ted the Builders, you know, if that name is, you know, IOTK Builders, your focus should be promoting IOTK Builders, you know.
Of course, yeah. I think that's what it is. It's about channeling energy.
It shouldn't be about you. It should be about that brand. It should be about that project. It's not about what you think or because a lot of the things you think or I think, you know, about any of the projects I've done, they might be wrong. You know, I think you got to put the brand first, you know, whatever that is, you know, and, you know, I'm lucky enough over the years to have worked with, you know, a lot of brands and a lot of events and also a lot of individuals, putting them individuals first as well.
Now, Joe Long's a little bit older than most of my guests, but that's only a positive because we get to learn from some of the mistakes he's made. One of these mistakes was doing the same thing over and over again. And we all know what that's called, insanity. What he meant by this is he kept doing the same thing without reviewing it and not understanding why it wasn't working.
What's the saying that they say, you know, if you keep doing the same, if you keep making the same mistake, it's a sign of madness.
And
insanity, you know, insanity. So, you know, that's not just in life, that's in business. Because if you're, you know, if you're making a mistake and it's costing you money or it's affecting the business, but you can't. I'll give you an example. There's certain things within my work when I was younger I couldn't be bothered to do. I just didn't want to do it. I won't say the things they were, but they're just little things, and they could be the smallest of things. But when them little small things affect what you're doing, and you don't change that and get on and do that, you know, that's craziness. That is insanity.
Yeah, literally.
You've got to do it. You've got to make the change, and you've got to do it. Even if you don't want to do it, you don't want to, you know, that specific thing, because there's parts in every business where, you know, you can't be fully rounded and enjoy every, you know, every percentage of your business. I mean, you might not enjoy the editing, for example.
Yeah.
You know, you might enjoy doing these interviews, but you might not enjoy doing the editing, or you might not enjoy doing the graphics on your package.
Yeah.
Or you might not enjoy, you know, making the phone call to the people to get them onto your podcast. When you're talking on the podcast, you're okay.
Yeah.
Just whatever little thing that is, you can't sort of feel sorry for yourself or sit back and go, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'll get away with that bit, because you're not going to get away with it. Just do it.
Now, for those listening, if you're doing something and you're not getting the results you want, take a step back, review the whole process, and work out what's going wrong, what's going right, and make sure you don't keep doing the wrong things over and over again, because like Joe said, that is insanity. Now, somebody else who also followed their passion from an early age was public speaker and public speaking coach Peter Hotwood. Now, one of Peter's key points was the fact that not everyone has to like what we do. Now, as a content creator and somebody who puts myself out on a pedestal and on camera, like you can see now, I often get judged quite a bit, whether I like it or not, but that's okay. Like Peter said, it doesn't matter.
People will automatically, as we said before, automatically judge us. But knowing that people have the right not to like us.
Yeah.
All right, so that's cool. That's absolutely cool. People have the right not to like us. They can judge us. They don't have to like us. That's absolutely fine. I know now that what we're doing now, some people will, you know, look at the first 10 seconds and think, I don't like this. I'm not going to go for this at all.
Yeah.
Others will hopefully stick with you. Your subscribers, the people that listen to you on a regular basis, they'll probably stick with you. So knowing that, you know, if you're doing something worthwhile, if you're doing something that you believe in, if you're doing something that you really value, then go for it, then keep going. But know that, you know, for me, I always think like 80% of my crowds, of the audiences that I'm speaking to, either as an MC, either as a host, a workshop, 80% hopefully will stick with me. Because there's that 20% or so that, you know, that may not you know, decide to buy into my ideas or emotionally stick with me.
Now, adding on to this, instead of worrying about people judging us, we should instead be worried about the amount of value that we can provide. Now, once you focus on value, it's a game changer, because that's where you get your confidence from, and that's where the passion really comes into play.
It's often about the value. If you think about the value, that will your thoughts about how you're feeling, your anxiety thoughts will start to go away. So let's say somebody's feeling anxiety before they go on stage. They're feeling a little bit nervous, as we all do. I do as well. What I tend to do is start thinking about the value. What am I going to share with my audience? What are they going to get after I've been on stage? After I've shared what I have to share, what are they going to walk away with? Yeah. As soon as you start thinking about that, as soon as you start focusing on that, the focus of anxiety starts to go away. And it's actually true of anything. If you want to get away from a different thought, you can't physically, our brains, we cannot think of two things, you know, at the same time. Yeah. In parallel. So if our anxiety is rising, so we're thinking about that, and whatever we think about, remember, gets bigger, right? Whenever we're thinking, so you know, when you're feeling crap about yourself, you're not feeling good about yourself, and you're feeling all, you know, all those negative thoughts, more negative thoughts, they spiral and they get bigger. All right. So the idea is to switch to a different thought. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Different thoughts. And just focus on that. So focusing on your value, focusing on what the audience is going to get and how they're going to feel, this will start to make you feel stronger. And then when you feel stronger up here, that will come across, as I said before, in the way you move, the way you breathe, and the way you sound.
Peter also shared another way to get confidence, and that is simply by getting experience. The more you try different things, the more you learn what you like, what you don't like, and that will directly translate into confidence.
For a long time, again, when I was younger, that's what happened to me. I wasn't that confident. But then when I started to do those presentations, it seemed like it was working. So the more I did it, it became more familiar. So anything familiar, you get more confident at. So anything you do lots of, actually, anything you do a lot of, you get more confident in. So let's say if you were, I don't know, bouncing a football on your head, and you did that every day for a year, you would get really, you'd get really confident at it. Maybe not necessarily that great at it, but you would get really confident at it, right? So when you start getting confident in something, the next stage is actually start to be self-aware and get feedback from others so you can move up.
Somebody else who also oozed confidence on my podcast was the amazing Carrie Rose, co-founder of the creative SEO agency Rise at 7. Straight off the bat, it was good to hear that Carrie Rose didn't really care about school when she was younger, which just proves you don't need to be book smart to be successful in life.
If I'm completely honest, I was not naughty, but I was definitely cheeky. I was the cheeky girl in class, causing all the troubles, like making everybody laugh. Like I had like a dedicated seat, like facing the blank wall, and I weren't allowed to turn around. I was that kid. I think maybe a bit of a center of attention kind of kid.
Carrie also said that if you don't hold a particular trait, whether that be a personality trait or an intelligence trait, whatever it may be, you can simply find somebody else to fill that gap. Now, this is exactly what she did when she was on the hunt for the perfect co-founder to form the duo behind Rise at 7.
One thing that I was a bit nervous about, though, is this person that offered me the investment hadn't got any experience or anything to add. So they would be a silent investor. So it's not like they come in and kind of be a business partner. I was a bit nervous going on my own. I was thinking, okay, I want a business partner to do this with me to really go big. I wanted to go big, and the company that I've launched now has got two sides to it. And I owned one side, and I needed somebody to own the other, really, from like a skill set point of view. So I actually spoke to one of the directors from the company that I worked at. He was one of my idols. I literally looked up to him. He's a genius, and I said, I've got this opportunity. I've got his business plan. He actually helped me put the business plan together for The Apprentice because I told him about it, and he gave me some advice about the industry. And I said, are you interested?
A big point that Carrie made was the importance of adaptation. Now, she made the point about her clients first and foremost, moving to the internet from that, brick and mortar retail stores, but it can also be applied to any aspect of life. So here is Carrie Rose talking about the importance of adapting.
So everyone needs to be online now, whether you make candles, whether you, work in Forex trading, or, whether you have, trying to sell car insurance, whatever it is, you need a website. And the high street is dying, it's declining. So one of our clients, for an example, is Cath Kidston. And I don't know if you saw in recent headlines, Cath Kidston have went into administration, but what they've actually done is closed all of their high street stores. They can't keep them open. They haven't got enough money to.
Talking of adapting to the modern world, Alex Price, the founder of 93 Digital, which is a WordPress agency based in London, spoke about how social media actually makes it look too easy to become a success overnight.
I think the slight risk of the world we live in now is that sometimes social media and everything else can make success look a little bit too overnight and a little bit too quick.
Yeah.
I think like I've seen this for a while now. You see like, The Social Network, the movie about Mark Zuckerberg, and the whole story is compressed into like 90 minutes or whatever. At the same time, we live in a world where I can pick up my phone and tap a button and a taxi will arrive, or delivery will drop me off some food, or like, everything's pretty instant these days.
Yeah.
Like even when me and you, I'm sure we're a bit younger, like, not that long ago, these things didn't exist. Whereas the generation now, the kids that are like 5, 6, 7, 8, like, I spoke to someone recently who said that they think their kid actually sometimes struggles to separate like real life from digital life or what's happening online. Like they're almost as one, and right, that's a scary thought.
Yeah, that is scary.
But I think so. The conclusion on that for me is like the biggest skill I think any young entrepreneur can have now is the patience and the focus to stick with something. Like, I think more and more people will start, but also more and more people will give up after a few months, or they won't stick with it. And I do believe that you need to stick at something for like 10 years to make it a real success. And I think, yeah, sure, there's stories of someone comes up with $1 billion idea and, 3 weeks later it's funded because they've got some connections from a VC or something, and 5 years later they've sold for a couple hundred million, whatever. Like, these stories exist, but they're definitely the minority. Like, I think if you dig into any success story, you'll just see a lot of grind over a fairly long period of time.
However, despite his concerns that social media brings to the young people, he did actually suggest that everybody should get involved in business at least once in their life, just to see what you can achieve all by yourself.
My general view on it is that, like, anyone should go through the process of starting a business at some point. Like, I think the process of going through it and the learnings from it will hugely develop anybody, regardless of how successful the business is, right? Simply taking the steps is, I think, an incredibly empowering journey in itself, even if you do it for a year and you end up getting a job or something.
Talking about people dabbling in business to stretch themselves, Alex also mentioned that business has allowed him to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I guess the really rewarding experience of growing a business where you spend most of your time learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. And
now, another young entrepreneur that I myself really look up to is Dean Ahmed, the founder of Fine Edge, a talent agency for athletes, and better known for his appearance on BBC's The Apprentice 2019. Much like Jack Parsons said at the start of this episode, Dean also agrees with the fact that stumbling blocks can actually improve you and build your resilience. He then goes on to talk about the power of the immigrant mentality, which, if you're a fan of Gary Vee, you know all about.
I watch a lot of Gary Vee, and he talks about the immigrant mentality and stuff. And, for example, I just think because immigrants have gone through so much, they know what zero tastes like. Whereas, all of us are probably, being born in this country, don't have that level of, understanding what zero tastes like. And naturally, our reflective traits and personalities are always sort of off the back of that and affected by that.
Another thing I learned from Dean is that you should enjoy what you do. But most importantly, your passion and the things you enjoy probably come from the things that you were doing when you was just a kid and probably forgot about now. So my advice, to add on top of Dean's advice, would be to look back at when you was a kid. What did you enjoy? Did you enjoy making videos? Did you enjoy playing with Lego? Therefore, you might want to be an engineer. You just never know. So look back at what you liked when you was a kid, and your true passion probably lies within that.
All my mates were saying, oh, look, I want to get the big cars and the big houses and all these different things. And yes, that's great. But I thought the best way of me doing that is finding something I actually enjoy and like. And then, I back myself and trust myself enough to then get to that point. But it was very important for me to love what I do, sort of thing. And now I'm so passionate. I could talk about that for like hours and hours. So I think I realised, basically, to answer your question, that I loved being a business person, loving the transactions, the adrenaline, the heat, the stress, and that sort of vibe.
Now, if you've listened to my podcast before, you've probably heard me say this phrase: "I'd rather be busy than bored," and that is exactly how Dean Ahmed feels as he talks about the importance of keeping busy.
As I said, I'm 21. We all go through different, successes, low points, troughs, and I've realised, especially, coming back off the show, how much I love that being busy. Even if I, for example, then, and I always give this expression when I'm trying to get a bit of advice from someone or a mentor, I say, I think some people are completely different and everyone can choose what they want to do. But for me, and it sounds stupid when I say it to my fifth family or sisters, but I literally say, if I get home at 10 p.m. and then I've got, or 2 a.m. and then I've got to wake up at 7 a.m. or whatever it is, I love that stress. And in the short term, I'll be like, and it sounds so cliche, in the short term, I'll be like, oh, I'm so tired. I wish I could just get more sleep. But macro, I love that. I love that feeling. I love the stress because it's all just part of a journey. And, I love that adrenaline rush.
Now, these final 2 episodes that I'd like to summarize are 2 people that really got me thinking about how our brain works and how we can reprogram it to work in our favour. Now let's look at the UK's #1 unconscious mind therapist, Robert Icey. Rob surprised me by saying this, but he said that young people should look past the material things, as money does not matter, and you should instead focus on what makes you truly happy.
And when I worked with this guy, Robert Dilks, he went to me, he's the best in the world of NLP. And I was with him, like, I got a few months to work with him alone, and he started stripping back. What makes you happy? I went, money, right? Straight away. Saving all the money, what would you buy of it? I said, I'd buy a Rolex, a new Ferrari, a fucking. Then what would make you happy then? I said, well, a nice big massive mansion, swimming pool for my kids to go private. Then what would you have? What would make you happy then? And he kept on and on and on and on. In the end, mate, I had houses in California, houses in Dublin. He just kept going on. And in the end, I was thinking, is he fucking winding me up? He's getting right on my nerves, right? I couldn't get. And in the end, he took me to a place where money didn't matter, where I had everything. He got me to I sort of stripped it all back. Where I had all my Rolexes, I had the cars, I had all the money, all the kids were fine. I got this, got businesses, houses in Dubai, houses there. And he went, now what would make you happy if you had all that, you didn't need nothing else? What makes you happy then? What makes you smile? I'll tell you what, it was the hardest question I've ever answered in my life.
Yeah.
I sat there and I was like, and I sat there and I remember it come to me. I just went, the only thing I could think of is I like making other people happy. Like, if I can see someone, make someone take the piss out of myself to see you smile, I'll do it tenfold. You know what I mean?
Now, again, because Robert's had a lot more experience than I am, I was able to learn from some of the mistakes he made. And one of these mistakes is not working on a side project whilst at his 9 to 5. And instead, it actually paid off, but it was a huge risk. He left his job to go and start a side project, which he definitely advised against.
Once I found that calling, mate, and that was it. Everything changed. I just left my job like a fucking idiot. To be honest with you, I should have thought about it a bit more. I overreacted because I was in shit for about 6 months, like bad. I just walked away from it. My dad went to me, what are you doing, you mug? I could have done anything I wanted. I was managing the South East of England. I didn't have to go work. Yeah. I said, but how can I be doing what I'm teaching? How can I be practicing what I'm teaching if I ain't doing it myself? If I ain't living my dream and telling other people they've got to visualise, I'm still working for someone else. I should have been, I'm a bit big pictured, you know what I mean? I jumped at the same. I should have really done it on the sly a bit more and sort of wormed it, like blended it in, but I never. I just went for it. So, but then I don't regret because it caused me problems. It stuck me in the deep end. And it made me swim. Do you know what I mean?
Now, Rob also told us about how powerful thoughts are, as everything around you started off as a thought. So be careful what you think, guys.
You first of all got to understand that everything gets made twice. Yeah, everything gets created as a thought inside the mind. Then it gets created outside here as a thing or, you know, reality. So if you look around your room, you're in there, Ted, yeah? See if you can find me anything that never started first as a vision in the human's mind, as a thought, except for what comes from nature and the earth in its original form. So except for trees, plants, cats, dogs, wind, rain, sand, snow, and all that shit, yeah? Except for that, see if you can find anything that never started as a thought.
Absolutely
nothing.
Nothing.
And if you look in the inside and outside of every building of Kent and London, you have the inside and outside of every building except what comes from nature and the earth in its original form. See if you can find anything that never started as a thought. You ain't going to find anything. Because bricks, mortar, you know, a screw, a wallpaper, there's not a wallpaper tree, there's not a clove tree. You know, we're creators. This is what human beings do.
Now, somebody else who also spoke about the power of thoughts was Ella Ringrose, the Irish YouTuber who focuses on helping women manifest their true desires.
No, completely. Like, thoughts become things. Like, literally whatever you are thinking, you are creating. You're in the creation process. We're always creating. Like, and you know, when people let external comments get to them, that's when they have the choice to either repel that and like not take it to them, or they can then digest that and then attract that. Because like, if someone says, oh, you're going to fail, and they go, oh God, like I am going to fail. Like, oh, they know I'm a failure deep down. They can see me for who I really am. Like all of this sort of stuff. Like, you are the only one who actually is not responsible. I don't want to say that, but like, you are the only one who can create what you desire. And you can choose to let other people get in.
Now, Ella also spoke about the importance of having that belief and putting in that hard work to achieve everything you've ever wanted.
If you have the belief in yourself, you set the intention and you work towards that each day with belief in yourself, like you can get there.
Now, much like I said earlier on in this episode, Ella also spoke about how important it is to learn from people who have been there and done that, so you can learn from their mistakes and learn from what went well for them.
And I think it's also the biggest piece of advice I heard was never take advice from someone who doesn't have what you want. So like, if you're listening to someone who's giving you financial advice and they're broke, it's like, and then it's scary advice, right? Like, you know, some people give you advice like, oh, like maybe you've gotten like, oh, you shouldn't start a podcast, like it's not going to go anywhere, like whatever. Like, do they have a podcast that's successful? You know, and if you actually listen to the people who have succeeded, they literally will do everything. Like, they will encourage you so much because they've gone through the path and they realize it's not that hard. Like, it literally just takes persistence. Like, if you want to start an online business, don't listen to your uncle who doesn't have an online business, right? Like, go to the people who have what you want. So that's really what I'd say. Like, just find someone and kind of look up to them. Like, realize we're not different at all. Like, we're all one. Like, we literally all came into this world the same way. Like, we're no different from each other. So finding someone who they have what you desire, and just believing in yourself and changing the outdated story, if you will.
Now, learning from other people is exactly why I started the If Only They Knew podcast, to learn the steps I need to take in order to get to where I need to be. So hopefully by me summarising each and every episode of the podcast, it will help you to get the value that you need in a shorter space of time. And if you did find it useful, please do subscribe to the If Only They Knew podcast for each and every full-length episode with conversations with young business minds from across the UK. Now, this was only 10 episodes that I've condensed of the 50 episodes from season 1 of the If Only They Knew podcast. So look out for 40 more summaries coming very soon. Stay tuned.